Hello, we are live. Welcome to episode session something 14 of Owen and Prince Chat D&D. And today we're going to be reviewing the Destruction Contraption by the mysterious Unbalanced Dice Games, who I'm told by reliable sources is actually just you, Prince, but after a lobotomy or something.
Yeah, let's jump right into it. Welcome. Glad to be here again, Owen, for a very exciting episode, I hope. That's right. Today we're going to take a look at an entry of the enigmatic Unbalanced Dice Games, the true
tell us about your
outsider artist. No, okay, yeah. I love affair.
Yeah.
Well, this is someone who I think was discovered by the late, the great Bryce Lynch of 10footpole.org in his quest to review every single adventure ever made. He stumbled across at some point the Unbalanced Dice Games, which is again, this person is anonymous. They don't seem to have a blog. They don't have much of an online footprint, and they make very bizarre sort of adventures, very unconventional. And of course, as a reviewer, I checked out one or two, and I fell instantly in love. And even though, I mean, Bryce, he did like two of them and then he moved on. The love affair, it waned. He said something like, well, I'm saving these for a rainy day. Like basically when he's eyeing the gun, like when he's like, okay, too much crap, I need like something new. I immediately went I went all in, and I think I've reviewed almost all of them. He made two new ones. I've checked out one of them, reviewed the other one. So yeah, we don't know who it is. Based
on, could be Prince.
It could be me. I could be, maybe I have like a crippling fentanyl addiction, and like maybe in my sleep or something like that. I wake up and I
these adventures.
Yeah, exactly.
It's automatic writing when you're possessed by the Archon, but I don't mean Macros, by the way. I mean
some sort of demonic entity. There is something to be said of so my personal theory, I read about this, is that I'm not going to actually try to figure out who it is. Like I'll respect this person's anonymity, but some of my personal theory is I was intrigued by something on their website. They sell dice spinners, right? You're supposed to print these out, I think, which are this is an alternate way of generating random numbers. And what you have like an arrow, and then you have a essentially a disc or a circle with a series of quadrants, and then you flick the arrow and it spins around, and at some point it stops at a certain point. And the thing is that nobody obviously uses this. Everybody uses dice, but there's one exception, and I read about this, and it's apparently in prison, where inmates are not allowed to have dice because of gambling.
Oh, I read. Yes, did we read the same article? That guy who was like, who's got the whole prison playing D&D.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So
and the hilarious dark punchline was that, like, I'm being executed next week or whatever it was.
You can't finish the campaign. Yeah,
it's really sad because of all those prostitutes I murdered.
Right. I don't know what he did, but whatever. It's either that or some institution or some place where you don't have dice. So I don't know who this person is, but it is like true sort of like outsider art, I guess. It's very strange, kind of janky. Definitely not something you run for grandma and little Timmy, but I am totally fascinated. So I figured why not.
I think in our detective work we can probably say it wasn't the guy who was about to be executed.
Jeez. Okay. Yeah, exactly. Well, no, I mean they're publishing again, so
so no, indeed.
Son
of Unbalanced Dice Games,
2022 or 23, for sure.
You can find them on Drive-Thru. I think like this one, the PDF for this is, and they're only in PDF, so I don't have a hard copy to show you. I don't always anyway, but I don't think you can. It's $5, $5 US. So if you like it, go and find it there. I think one thing that's going to raise, and we'll start in a minute or something. Well, I'll put the PDF up in a minute. We'll just start doing our normal dig. I think there's an interesting thing that comes out of it. I was thinking about or reflecting about, and it comes to with the fact you just solo played this. And I was talking about it with some guys last night after my game as well. The nexus of how you review stuff. And I'm thinking about when people, whether it's on a fiction book or an RPG module, disagree, and they don't just disagree in the comments, which is encouraged and allowed, but they are obviously kind of either actually aggressive or they're confused because they have this. They probably have very different standards of what is good and useful in a product to me. Let's put it very neutrally. And I think this will bear when we talk about this. But I was thinking about what being a reviewer, a good RPG reviewer is, and the fact that, in my view, there aren't actually very many RPG reviewers I really think get what I want out of a module in terms of when they review it. And I think for me, the degree to which I'm looking for like a really good mix of imagination, like a technical ability at designing mechanical situations, and usability, like the fact you can use a book to play a game. If you're reading the rule book for Catan, it needs to be one that you can play Catan using, right? And it's the same principle with the RPG module. So yeah, I guess what is there anything there? I mean, what are your big pillars or standards of RPG reviewing? What do you really look for?
Well, yeah, with me, I find myself it's always like a mixture. I think the only thing you need to do as an RPG reviewer, besides whatever, be honest and have a writing style that is penetrable and engaging, is I think the best thing you can do is you function as a sort of like compass. So even if you have a very peculiar taste or whatever, if the reader understands your frame of reference, they can kind of use you to calibrate what they would think of an adventure. And I get this in comments sometimes that people say that like they like it, or that like some parts that I hate they would enjoy. But that's totally fine, right? That's good. So it doesn't really matter if you have a particular taste, as long as that taste is sort of clear. Now, in my neck of the woods, my taste has shifted, or I would say evolved over the years. But it's still the essence is still there. I do also look for like this sort of imaginative component. It's just that the weighting of that imaginative component has altered as I as I get more into like classical gaming, and focus more on actual play. The sort of I think my tolerance for material that is janky with very imaginative has declined somewhat, and my appreciation for very well crafted materials has sort of increased just by seeing how all of that stuff actually plays out. I haven't run a harpy against what in an adventure yet. Oh man, that's my only TPK was VX harpies. That was just
I ran AD&D harpies. In a stream, I actually ran AD&D harpies in a Spelljammer stream, 5 sessions ago, 6 sessions ago, which the NPC who came from the planet was like, as they appeared, was carefully stuffing wax in his ears, while the PCs were like, I wonder what's going on here.
I didn't catch
and then they were rescued.
Did the gentlemanly thing. You foreshadowed it a little bit. Yeah, you gave it
I get. Well, it's encounter distance. So they saw these flying creatures going towards them in the wilderness that looked like haggard women. They're actually in that. They did do. There's some good player decisions as well, but the thing that probably helped save them was they'd got these little chatters, these little lucky monkey, like I guess they're like small intelligent orangutan people off this other planet, and they had them join the crew because these two wanted to come and kind of colonize a different planet, leave their home, and that they started distracting the harpies and jumping on them, and that basically saved the party. So basically, if parties can pick up like random monkeys and expand their Spelljammer crew, that is the main way to win against harpies. If anyone's looking for advice,
I ran I ran one harpy, I think, and
I think I had 3.
Also recent session. That one almost got the entire party. And I
Mm.
think if I would have run if I would have interpreted the trance effect, which so that's trance with a CE, by the way.
Yeah.
So the trance effect, if I would have interpreted that more like stringently, their chances of surviving would have been even slimmer. But still, it was very close call. Again, harpies, they can she touched the cleric, who was then charmed, who then began attacking other people and like all that shit. So it was very
I was
fun.
going to say, I think I was actually slightly over harsh with my harpies initially because of the issue of the song stopping in the text I was using. I think I was using the 2E text just because that's what I had on my phone or whatever. I might use the 1E text. I would have to compare, but where functionally the singing is a concentration thing. So obviously, if they do something else or if they're hit, like it's that the individual stops. And so it's probably actually slightly harsh.
Awakened from their trance. That's another interpretation that works. To answer that question, by the way, of the system, I run 1E AD&D. But yeah, sure.
Yeah, I run a mixture of 1 and 2 AD&D. 2E mostly for player facing stuff.
I hope you don't use speed factors on your on the initiative.
Yeah. As an initiative,
you do.
As an initiative modifier.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Yes, you never debated someone like me because you shoot them in the street instead.
That's the only language you guys understand. Yeah. For sure. Anyway, we're getting way off track. Yeah.
Well, no, I think it was the conversation was part of the what you look for in reviewing. And I think
right.
Yeah. So no, I think it's something you weight different things. I gave the example last night in this conversation about what I've mentioned here about my experience of Thousand Islands is something that when I reviewed it, I would have said the same more or less I did now. It's like there's a lot of work to do here. But I said, and I'd agree with this as well now, like, oh, wow, there's really beautiful art. There's some really lovely, interesting settings and ideas. But what I realized, and I said this to you, if you remember, I was like, you could just read The Fairy Queen and write a setting. Like the idea of you buying a bunch of art books for that purpose is of really limited utility. But you realize as you play more and as you kind of realize what products are valuable to you, you start to realize there's lots of stuff in the we talked about this in State of the OSR. There's lots of stuff that you could review, which is basically like, actually, I theoretically like this a lot more than I'd actually like it. And then you start to weight your reviewing, I think, towards what you really like, what you actually need. And I think usability and mechanical functionality end up being much bigger in that analysis.
Yeah, even usability, I think, is kind of like overrated. This is another. Are you going to
run Journey to Malabulge then? You're going to just run it no notes.
Oh, fuck. Okay, that's the most extreme example imaginable.
I just mute you,
Yeah, that's right. No, so it is important, don't get me wrong. I feel I think that's what 10-foot pole kind of did. It's like a victim of its own success, where you have all these different interpretations and styles of what D&D could be, but you can all agree on usability, so that becomes like sort of the only metric, or that's a problem that you run into like 9 times out of 10. So every review starts to become about like the usability and the layout, and this becomes a sort of brainworm for people, like to put all that effort into. And this should be a little checkbox, right? When you're designing something, you don't go the layout, the smoothness, the cross hatching, the different fonts, like this shit, like this is so peripheral to the actual structure of the adventure. And you get adventures that have the complexity. They have like immaculate layout. They have bullet points. They use all this artistry, this wizardry, and it's for a dungeon that's like less than 20 rooms. That you could write it on a piece of toilet paper, and you'd be able to memorize it in an hour. You wouldn't even have to like.
I think this is actually something about. Though it was not a 1-page dungeon thing, it's explicitly 2-page dungeon. But the adventure site contest, which I helped judge for,
Ben Gibson.
Of Codelight Press, and there'll be another one coming up of those. But the idea of a 2-page plus map dungeon, and there, no one was going for kind of fancy macro layout, where they're just like, and some of them, people like Gritzy, were going for far too much tiny text. But the point was, you're like, no, here, this is meant to be like a 10 or 20 room site. or whatever it is that you can just look at on a piece of paper, and that turns out to be much more practically usable than much more complex layout modules. So yeah,
sure,
I think
in a format like that, you would I feel in a format where it's very constrained, where you have like space constraints, then you do have to start thinking about like what you do and do not put in the
no,
text.
I
So you
agree.
start like
I agree.
it becomes a different like state of the art. Or if
Yeah.
it's if you're looking at something like Anthony Huzo is a great example. Like very complex, like say a high level module. If it's this vast, intricate machine, right, and there's all of these processes to keep track of, then you do start to then you do have to use certain tools to help the DM
Yeah.
keep track of it. Like in Slith Hive, I did try to do that. I know that there's a lot of like complex moving parts, so you try to give the DM some tools to reduce the cognitive load, because they're juggling all of these balls. And the
like
example I
and classic examples of that, not so much modern ones, but even roster sheets or whatever are an example of that, aren't they? Of like, look, this is just all the monsters, so you can keep a track of the monsters.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, with that in mind, let's see if this has actually added okay. The Destruction Contraption. A low-level OSR adventure by Unbalanced Dice Games.
It's he does have an actual system, which I believe, and based on what I've seen, I've both run it for other people, and I've like this particular adventure I did like sort of like besides reviewing it, I sort of like quote unquote solo played through it. Right? So I am convinced that this person plays D&D. Is this something that would be recognizable to other humans? I'm not sure, but this is for I think Labyrinth Lord with.
So it's officially for Labyrinth Lord, yeah.
Yes.
I'd say, and it mentions that you can see like page 1 using the adventure using Labyrinth Lord. It also mentions the DM as the Labyrinth Lord rather than as a DM. And there are I would say there are signs that is not what he's written it for, and I say that because repeatedly saves, for instance, are presented as dexterity checks.
Wait,
so
that's not. No.
there are several
D&D
instances of
Labyrinth Lord
saves.
recognizes ability scores.
Oh no, they do.
So
They do,
so
but they
ability
also
checks. So
yeah, they do. But
yeah.
what I mean is the fact that his, a common thing he does for traps is to go for the dex check says to me that he might not be thinking of, yes, I just roll the stuff that's on the character sheet. As in, it's obvious that he has, at the very least, let's call it design preferences. I suspect it's in-play preferences based on what he actually plays at home.
I think he uses probably uses ability score checks as well as the regular saving throws. I'm pretty convinced the guy plays Lab Lord. But regardless, yes, you see here a very large index. Notice a complete lack of layout of any kind.
So yeah, there are like 70. So basically, this is a dungeon of 72 rooms plus a separate mini dungeon, which isn't really, it doesn't function as much like a dungeon. It's more like a locale, like the treehouse, that is to say. Prince. So there's kind of there's two. There's a kind of small wilderness which isn't necessarily super meaningful in terms of, as in it's not a majorly designed thing other than the encounter table. There's a custom encounter table. There's two main locations, that it's that level of stuff. So it's not a small adventure, there's plenty of play here. I think you're estimating 2.5 sessions, which is, if a session is, let's call it 3-ish hours.
No. Oh no, this is based on
a 6-hour session.
Well, yeah. So if you do it yourself, right? If you were to like run yourself through something like this, you have to consider the difference between how quickly you yourself as a genius can, and total dictator can make decisions versus how long would a party of different people take to get through all of this. I think this this dungeon has like what 72 rooms, 2 levels. You can just calculate the how many rooms would you able to be, would you get through every hour in order to figure out, like, say, a minimum amount of time. And I think if you would play you have to probably play pretty quickly. You could maybe do this in 2 or 3 sessions if you play it quickly, and these would be, I think, 5 or 6 hour sessions, really.
Yeah. Just to just quickly show the maps. Basically, the way that the PDF is laid out is that the maps are at the end, so they're not at the start of the thing. I tend to prefer them to be at the start. I know that's perhaps artificial, because if you're holding a book, you can flick between fairly quickly. But yeah, here we go. 1 hex equals 10 miles. You start near the village of Massacre. You can see up this river.
Which has been
there
obliterated in a spooky fashion. That's right.
Yeah, indeed. Then you end up going, probably, you don't have to though, you can skip it essentially. You go to Mabler's home, and then there is this railway to the workshop of the Destruction Contraption. And yeah, you've got, there's one location, and then the other location is those maps. The maps are actually pretty clear and readable. If we want to talk layout, the maps are pretty clear and readable. So that, yeah, we probably won't refer much back to the maps, but just to give people a sense of what's going on with them.
I think as an idea of format, it would maybe be pretty difficult to do in a stream, but you could have like 2 parallel tabs open. Like one has the map, the other one has the encounters.
I might be able to add another
in the distant future. One. That's fine with me. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, not sure. I might be able to. Yeah, exactly. I think that's the thing, is it can be helpful. Obviously, one will often detach a map or make a copy of a map to work with when you're actually running at the table. I prefer, I should say, I prefer physical copies of things to PDFs as well, generally. Partly because I like the tactility of being able to quickly move between stuff. But yeah.
I usually run. I usually run on my laptop, so I would just have tabs open, and I would have a separate tab for the map. It would not be a problem.
I was going to say, yeah, you could, you can just copy and paste the JPEG, can't you? At worst, into something else.
For sure.
Yeah. So yeah, we've got in this event, the adventure uses Labyrinth Lord and the Advanced Edition Companion. They can also be purchased in book form. AC is descending and starts at 9i. So this is BX with some. This is for those of you who are more familiar with Old School Essentials. That obviously has a similar idea of you add advanced stuff in. Labyrinth Lord is maybe more thoroughgoing and systematic, like its Advanced Companion. But it's and Lab Lord was the original system, I think, for Dolmenwood on the note of Old School Essentials.
But yeah, it was the
BX with
BX clone. Yeah, at the time, that's right. Yeah. So you have,
I was going to say basically,
weird BX variants of druids, illusionists, and that sort of stuff. Yeah, and race and class are separated again. All that stuff.
So you can kind of play it as very slightly lighter AD&D, but without a lot of the a lot of the systems that you think are disposable to AD&D, but aren't really disposable. Or not fully disposable anyway. So yeah, that's what it's using. So you got to think, when you're thinking about the meta of the game or whatever, you got to think about it as how to put it. It's quite lethal. It's quite swingy. Monsters tend to have very simple, flat abilities, and that will be interesting to compare to his monsters. But just to kind of give a general picture.
The normal BX, even with Advanced Edition Companion versus AD&D, is that characters are still a bit more fragile. You don't have a death threshold. They're also more low powered.
Like spellcasting.
That's right.
He mentions in the comments.
And there's usually there's like a lack of dimensions to a lot of the abilities. It's more binary in the simpler game. I think one of the biggest upgrades actually for the Advanced Edition Companion for Labyrinth Lord is to give the cleric a spell at level 1, which is immediately much more pleasant to deal with.
No, indeed. I think it's even if you see the very lowest levels as a tutorial, you want the tutorial to be fun. You don't want it to be like, yeah, we've got a tutorial, but it sucks. And I think it's something that I think it comes. To be fair, that comes from OD&D, of course. It's a kind of leftover of some of the design predilections of OD&D. But I think there's a reason why it gets formalized, in the other direction in advanced. So it gives you the thing here that there is a weird problem, and the elder calls an inventor hermit to come and help. But this plainly turns out to be that the inventor hermit is behind destroying this village. That is let's call it the plot of the adventure.
It's with this inventor hermit. I don't know if you guys don't have Suske and Wiske, I guess. So this is a sort of Dutch/Belgian comic, but inventor hermit. This is like an evil professor or a mad scientist that you would see in something like the Care Bears, maybe. Or some
I was going to say
Smurfs
obviously has a kind of wizardy adventure like that, which is another French language originally. I actually have I did literally where my bande dessinée R is next to my desk. But yeah, so that kind of thing. Yeah, the evil local inventor, and here he's killed the Smurfs, is what we're saying.
After he's been around for 100 years, that's right, and he's built an invention device. Just annihilated a village, and there's 1,000 gold pieces if you capture him alive, and 500 for his death. That's right.
Yeah. So which I was guessing, I might say this is like a second to third level adventure, ideally to start with, and then you might see some shift in that. Hey,
look at that tasteful, outsider art. This is.
I was going to say that's one thing. Is that Unbalanced Dice. Our friend Jeff Smith obviously does a similar fringe style. This is even fringier than Jeff's. I think it's fair to say.
Top fringe, that's part of the charm.
Yeah, just these mad drawings that aren't always completely legible. You can kind of work out what they are, but it's the scrap princess of the fringe of the OSR.
I mean right. This is but like the scrap princess, I guess, was also legitimately kooky. So that's fair. That was
I'm more of a fan. I think there's some fantastic scrap pieces and there's some garbage pieces. I think when people are like, "Oh, it's all awful," you're like, "It's not all awful." You just go and read Veins of the Earth. There's some great monster art in there. It's just there's a tolerance, isn't there, where you eventually that you can only get so many hits out of that style.
Well, no, I think what happened is that this individual, they were like, well, this guy is really good. We got to put him in everything, and then you're not cool outsidery anymore. That doesn't work.
So partly it's literally actually tolerance. It's literally about tolerance ending. You're like, I'm seeing too much of this.
Yes, correct. It's like how strange. That's and so it should be with UDG, right? Every once in a while, actually, maybe never, but every once in a while, here you go. That's your party roll the one. Yeah, for sure. There we go.
On the note of artists collaborating with Patrick Stewart, I should say, I actually think an interesting case for the same thing, though maybe there was no tolerance exerted at all, was I'm afraid I forget his name. Dirk, I think his first name was Dutch guy, I think, who did the maps and some of the art for Silent Titans, which is actually really beautiful, but it's something where you could tell immediately, and maybe this was the post-Bryce Lynch hegemony period, suddenly layout
standard, the utility hegemony. Okay,
but you could see there was people's reaction. Sometimes some people loved it. I actually quite liked it. I didn't hate it, but people were like, these maps aren't easy to read. And I think it's something even now I'm probably more tolerant of in some ways. But I think that was it. That was something that changed in the atmosphere of the OSR. As you say, as utility became more important. So here we go. He's chaotic evil. He's not a great guy.
Very
gives you a mighty,
by the way,
200 XP.
No, go back. You see, he doesn't fight. He just runs away. But you see, and his armor class is 0 because he has this protective suit of aluminum foil that only works for him. Oh, it's tin foil. Sorry. Yes, but the very important. You'll notice he has 5 hit dice and not 4. Do we know why that is, Owen?
So you can't put him to sleep.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. That's what I'm talking about here. This craftsmanship, because there's actually a random encounter later on the there's a pretty big random encounter table actually.
Mhm.
For once it's actually large enough. It's like a D30 random encounter table. That's large
Yep.
enough for 2 levels, right?
Mhm.
Especially of this thing is enormous. This
Mm.
this weird factory. So it's enough. But like one of the random encounters is you can just encounter him and he runs away. And even a fixed location where he is present, he'll try to escape at 120 movement rate.
Yeah.
And I did discover also that Labyrinth Lord has very I don't know what I don't want to be rude on your channel, so there must be a different word than the word I'm looking for like the rules for movement in Labyrinth Lord. But they're very special. They're very peculiar.
Isn't the Dutch phrase "we hebben een big probleem"?
We hebben een groot probleem. Is that yeah? Well, maybe it
Yeah.
is. You know,
Yeah.
in
Do you not know
in
that?
Dutch,
You must know that.
we like the word Mogol, which can mean
Yeah.
Mongol or something else.
Yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
that's what I have. Apparently in Labyrinth Lord. So if you go into combat, you just always move. You see these 2 movement speeds, right? 120 and
Mhm.
40. So 40 would be your encounter movement rate,
Mhm.
and you can in Labyrinth Lord you can only move your full your full movement rate. Not if you charge. That's not a thing unless it's in
Mhm.
the monster description. Or you're on a horse. This is some sort of nitro boost button that you turn on during combat, and then you can move your full encounter speed or your full overland speed during combat rounds. But then you have to rest for 3 turns, or you get a penalty to fight afterwards. So this is like the nitro super speed mode, and that will come up when determining whether or not Mabla can escape.
Yeah. No. Yes. This is one of those things you pick up across. I mean, it's one thing you find some of this with just basic BX, but across the many BX clones, let alone the kind of the rules light inspired clones, etc.,
Which are
etc.
worse. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
but you often just find something where the someone's like decided to change some core component, and the only time I've ever kind of heard that this more or less works in play is with 7 7
Voyages.
voyages of
Xylarthan.
Xylothon, which
Yeah.
and in that case, people are like, "Oh no, actually, that system works with the loss of the cleric," which sounds debatable, but you could, I trust people who say so. But it's something where as soon as you start mooking around with the stuff in the basic guts of the game like that, and you go like, "Oh, maybe it'd be fun to do this," you are really risking like
I
the
would
game
not
not
be
working.
surprised if BX also had that rule. It
You
sounds
know,
like
I wouldn't either, but that's
crazy enough
yeah.
that to
To be a
be
BX rule, yeah. No, it
yes.
sounds
Yeah.
exactly. That's why I'm happy to blame it on BX. I say that having I briefly played vanilla BX like off a printed out PDF or whatever.
Yeah.
Where it was free on drive through, but I iterated 3 different things and ended up playing. I think or maybe it's Lablord, to be fair. But yeah, ended up playing old school essentials for my basic needs, and I don't do that anymore. So,
Well, getting
yeah.
I mean, if you it's almost like if you if you're still sort of like fresh off the boat, and if there's still that childlike wonder to the game, I can see it being pretty enjoyable. I feel it gets very if you actually start looking at the guts of the game, it gets kind of like samey, where you just equip everybody with longbows and you buy the best armor, and
Yeah.
that's kind of like the and use burning oil, and that's the 3 moves that you need. If you're not
there
going
is a
to
thing
do
about
anything,
about
yeah,
weaponry, and
yeah,
if there is not very much distinction between weapons, you don't want to have like crazy granular hyper. Like there's 7 types of damage and 7 types of health, but if there's no distinction between weaponry that's meaningful, the only real stuff will be basically stuff like spears are worth it because you can go from the 2nd rank or whatever. Like
yeah. Or you, because of the way the ranged combat is written, you actually get a bonus if you fire ranged weapons at short range. So a weapon that does D8 damage, there's with no firing into melee penalty at a huge range every round, just becomes very valuable. You'll notice here, by the way, the conditions. Yeah, look, this is kind of granular. This is nice. The 1,000 GP and 1,000 XP extra. I think that's 1,000 XP total, and then the
I know it's
it's
2,000. In addition to the XP the game gives them, they get 1,000 XP. So it's 2,000 XP as the reward function. Yeah.
Yes. And then, just like at the end of Ghouls and Ghosts, there's actually a 50% chance you have to go back and get him from the dungeon again. He escapes. Yeah.
This was one thing
I did. Execute him immediately afterward. Yeah, of course.
I think I did wonder in this. I was thinking it's something about placing stuff in a campaign. I don't go for weapons. Some people are like, I've realized I can never use a pre-written adventure. In my campaign is so special. I have to only write stuff. You're like, well, maybe it is, but mine isn't. But I do write a lot of my own stuff, albeit. But the point is, I use lots of modules, and one question I ask is here. I like the fact that it's talking about the impact on the campaign world, essentially, because he runs away, you have to go back. It's a continuing part of the campaign. Potentially, you could just walk off and leave him there. But I think I wonder how we'll get to this. How far the setting assumptions here probably fit anomalous subsurface environment better than they do.
This is probably the worst fit you could get in any game. This is like the most remote. I think it would be very interesting to think about like what kind of game could actually run this. Like maybe if it's in a world that's like in a dream or some sort of weird dying Earth. It has to be pretty gonzo.
The things that I brought a lot of kind of weird bits and pieces to mind, like I was thinking about like the magic roundabout from the 1970s, like lots of other kind of either psychedelic or weird kind of imaginative things. I think Anomalous Subsurface Environment, which also uses Lablord, Patrick Wetmore, is probably setting wise of the big settings that you can just go and buy, to be clear, probably the best fit, because it's a dying Earth with loads of wizards and loads of weird wilderness and loads of contraptions. So in that sense, the magical assumptions aren't crazy. The kind of stuff that we're going to see him doing isn't crazy.
No, it's also not quite. It's not super science. It's almost, I think it's like golden age comic book science where and he plays into this, right? Some of the random encounters are like that. One is like the characters think they find like a door leading into a room with like a treasure and gold in it, and like at the moment of that they're most excited, then bam, you're back outside. It was a dream. It was just very bizarre sort of. And there's one or two of that, so like it really feels weird and dreamlike. A lot of his technology is Rube Goldberg, right? It seems to be distilling or making these sort of android-like fake human beings from the fish in the river. There's
and him
as a railway, it's a big factory.
He says, I mean, it's a perfectly fair. How can anyone top the game design of any time someone gets in a craft net and goes upstream, something happens? Ironically, actually, that's not something I found. That is obviously vague and not super mechanized in itself. But that's not usually the problem with this. We'll get to if there is a running the game kind of problem. We'll get to it, I think.
No, it's just that you put a river there, but you're not allowed to use the river
to go the other way.
Upstream.
That's the important point. Is he's more or less said you just get forced to go the other way. Yeah. So here's some more stuff. So my favorite character in this is O'Blurn. Let's meet O'Blurn. Was his first Mabler, the evil inventor's first son, who's kind of just a nice guy. He's half fish, half man. And he'll look after you. At one point he kind of comes and rescues you. He's okay. He wants you to live. I like O'Blurn.
The first part is that you had like one. I think the idea is also that like you come across the destroyed village, and then there's tracks leading up
the
to
place
that. You can obviously
ignore
the tracks and wander the forest.
You can go into the wilderness. There is a wilderness map and a wilderness table. Yep.
The wilderness map just says river and then like all forest, but sure, you can actually do that. Yeah.
But the point, you can do it. You can do it, and there is an encounter table that is special for the adventure encounter table, and it will be like,
it would probably work. No, but
it's fine.
there's
Yeah,
the weird treehouse. It's you're right. It's a location, but it doesn't really have any danger or
it's
treasure.
not a
It's just
dungeon
a
really. No.
weird sort of foreshadowing, I guess. There's a way to there is like a sort of like a secret to teleport you instantly to the actual dungeon. Um, so yeah, it's just a way to sort of start, and I guess this again, this would be like you set the stage of this bizarre schizoid paint
Yeah,
huffing fantasy adventure that
yeah,
you're going to take your poor players on. That's right.
yeah. So yeah, and another some games. These are video games, very fringe. One thing in general that lots of it reminded me of was 90s adventure games, but the specific aesthetic at points reminded me of Jonas Karatzi's Lands of Dreams games. He helped design Serious Sam 6 and Talos. What's it called? The Talos Principle
I've
1 and
heard
2.
of that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
like
yeah,
they made a really good physics.
yeah, yeah.
They made a physics adventure puzzle game with their pew pew first person shooter mass slaughter engine, which is
Engine
pretty
exactly.
cool.
Yeah. No, so yeah, he before that did like his wife did the hand drawn art, kind of better art than UDG, but very much in the same sort of very much kind of handcrafted
His poor
felt
wife.
figure.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And this would be like there obviously dozens of these screens and like with alt text on virtually every object on a scene as well. So it's like thousands of hours of writing. This gave me vibes of this kind of like weird, slightly dreamlike kind of homemade yeah, hand stitched
Yeah,
thing.
but that's also
Um
why
yeah.
I convinced you to like
Yeah,
to show it
yeah,
off and check it out. Like it really is
yeah,
like very different, and it's not
yeah.
like it's definitely jank, but it's not fake, right? This is
Yeah.
a totally sincere
And this, by the way, for those
non-sellout
who know those
effort.
games, it's actually this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about, like fish stew, a fire that never goes out, has a 3 foot diameter, 2 foot high black pot sitting on it. There's like fish who are alive in the boiling water. There's some tree roots who want you to find them fish stew and up the amount they get fed, so the treehouse can keep expanding. A blurn has like man-sized toys of a gorilla, giraffe, lion, and duck. Um,
But
yeah,
like
there's
in between the non sequiturs and
yeah,
the red
yeah,
herrings, that they do a little bit of foreshadowing, and there's like
yeah.
one. I think there's like a device there that if you do actually interact with it, you can get it to like teleport someone to immediately to the
Oh yeah, well
factory.
no, everyone. I think as long as they're all in the right area, I think
Yeah,
everyone can go.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's I'd say that it's a charming location. It's yeah, it's interesting, especially because of Blurn when he comes up on the wilderness chart as well. Even when he potentially can become your enemy in the main workshop, Blurn is kind of a winsome character. So there's a lot of memorable stuff here. I do think there's one thing you got to think in terms of what you call the paint huffing element. Isn't just the imaginative stuff, but also like that this adventure where you go to this village and it's disappeared and there's just weird stuff. There's like there's basically carbon shadows.
It's been sort of like weirdly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been destroyed
Mhm.
in a sort of not just a physical, but in a metaphysical way, because I
Yeah,
think you
yeah.
can encounter like the souls of the people of that village later on, and there's weird hints that
Mhm.
he's making all these masks of the villagers that were destroyed, and maybe he's thinking about like replacing it with automatons. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, or
But
they're
yeah, it's
merging with
very
his
strange.
robots,
Yes. Yeah.
like
Correct.
yeah, there's something very strange. It's yeah, certainly in terms of like a combination of some of the darker pulp fiction of the early 1900s and like psychedelic stuff. Definitely hitting that. Though Guillermo del Toro, that would be another touchstone actually for some of the stuff. Um, no, it's certainly very effective. Um, in terms just to add a level of reading it, you're like that's weird. But it is weird that you go to this place. It's just carbon shadows. You follow some footprints if you're doing the smart thing, and you end up at a treehouse inhabited by a half fish, half man who's perfectly friendly, but everything in the place is weird. It's something where this is trading and I'm not saying this is either praise or criticism for now, but it's trading on vibes at some level. Like you're impacted by just how disoriented this stuff is. I think. Um,
Yeah, I think so, and it's also like I think if you're not on board for this, then
mm,
this is gonna fall like immediately land horribly. Well, maybe you can get away with the bizarre tree house and the weird hump man and the fish stew, maybe, but no, the dungeon, I think that people might get exasperated, or it doesn't hit the right. The suspension of disbelief just goes out the window, and people are like, what kind of stupid shit is this? Of course, yeah.
I think that's one thing, is you need a setting to be internally coherent. And I'm not saying this isn't, but it needs to not just it's not that the only voter on whether or not something is internally coherent is the writer. The reader also has to make some judgment, and if it doesn't translate to the reader, and in this case we're assuming that's a DM who then describes it to players, the DM and the players have to be able to say, oh yeah. I think it's a problem, generally speaking, with hyper genre adventures, is that players don't have the right touchstones for them imaginatively. You don't have the background, and I think this can be a problem with science fantasy and with other weird settings. I remember a friend of mine playing Dark Sun. He's like, I really love the setting, I really love the game, but I just keep realizing I don't know the setting, so I keep just assuming the wrong stuff. Which I thought was an interesting insight. That was a really honest insight as well, to be like, I'm struggling here because not because it's bad, it's kind of cool, but I just don't know the touchstones of a dying earth metal poor setting.
Oh yeah, and I think Dark Sun is way more like, if there was a level of verisimilitude, this if you would grade it on a 1 to 5, this is almost a 1. I think, like a big metal claw with helicopter blades drops some sort of, what is it, a flying barracuda monster or something. Okay, sure.
I think
what the hell is this?
There certainly does feel like there must have been psychoactive substances involved in the creation of
somebody just watches I don't know, like, what is it, old Looney Tunes cartoons or something like that. I get that vibe genuinely with the giant factory and the rails leading to there's something about about carts and rails that sort of
you more or less, I think you enter in via a rail yard and all its appanages, there's the storage room for all the rails, that kind of thing. And there are a few machines and stuff to interact with that a lot, based on that kind of sense. Certainly the idea, of the Dougal and the Blue Cat treacle factory, if we're going to talk Magic Roundabout, like just weird, sinister, pseudo-industrial, definitely takes inspiration from that sort of fiction. So I would say this. Let's look at this page. These are his encounters, because then we can skip forward a bit.
Sure.
To the dungeon. But these are basically you 1 in 6 every X hours if you're moving.
I don't know why you would say every 1 or 2 hours. Why you would not, do it? Why you would increment it like that is inconceivable. But at least you don't get attacked at night.
Yeah, unless you're moving. He says all these monsters are written by Martini.
That's
after
right.
long sessions of personal rehab.
After the electroshock therapy. Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
that's it exactly.
No, it's like Alex in Clockwork Orange. He's become an upstanding member of society, and so has Unbalanced Dice Games. He has adapted to our postmodern reality.
There was one point, and he does this more in the later on in the adventures, that he sometimes you'll get an encounter and it's potentially bad, like I think the grappling claw can also actually grab one of the characters and deposit them inside the factory, or it can launch some sort of spear, which is actually quite deadly. But then
I think it's like 3d8 or something.
Yeah, that's for a low-level party. That's potentially deadly. But then you hear the noise in advance, so if you're sort of smart, you can take cover or something like that. You can flee, you can hide, like that sort of stuff, and that is recurring occasionally. I think later on in the factory itself, there are certain rooms that also have some sort of bizarre hazard, like a machine is powering up, or I think in one case you get some sort of bizarre psychic pressure, and then if you stay in the room, it keeps increasing, but you can respond or leave, and then you just right as rain. What do you think about that, Owen?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say about these encounters. This is a good example because it applies to the rooms as well. We'll see more of that, but of the writing style, basically. Let's call it the writing style. That
let's call it writing. Yeah.
let's pretend it's writing. Animated wooden statues that, unbeknownst to the party, appear like the people of Massacre. The statues are weak and the most they do is follow the party around. Or eyes open up on a tree, it's a spy,
Yeah.
or there's a
Some of it is
claw with the
just
helicopter blades.
some of it just is just like essentially just you're like, huh, what, and then
Yeah.
it's over. That's right. Yeah.
So
There's
yeah, I
actual
think
encounters in there, but
yeah, there are. Yeah, well, and the last one is a combat encounter. So I think there's a few things. One, you get a lot of this kind of like, that's weird, that's weird, that's weird. Lots of the encounters, lots of the rooms in the dungeon are weird. The other thing is that he has this. It's not overly chatty. It's quite short. It's not like he's incredibly
verbose.
garrutless. Yeah,
No,
indeed.
you're right.
But it is very much conversational. Like, hey, there's just a thing that you see. You don't know it's this. He'll sometimes end a room on a question. We'll get to that, but he'll be like, maybe the party should keep doing something.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, just like stream of consciousness writing. Yeah, for sure.
So that it is one thing that someone like Bryce probably wouldn't like is that it's not his idea of terse, even though it's reasonably terse, because it obviously has this weird kind of like crazy Uncle Ian has come over and is like, "Hey kids, let's play D&D," and he gets out this module and it's like reading these descriptions, and all the kids are kind of half fascinated, half horrified by him.
Well, I mean, terse is just I think it's good, like in adventure writing, to avoid waste. Obviously, you're trying to make something. You're trying to reduce the amount of friction between the DM. Like you're trying to reduce the amount of friction or amount of effort that the DM needs to expend to first understand the adventure, and then there's a second step, which is to actually run it during play, and then you're going to have a lot of differences of opinion based on some people they're like absolutionists. They're like, no, you really have to be able to like just open the book, and I want to be able to run a room without knowing anything else. And I'm in a bit more of a moderate camp. If you it's actually sometimes it's warranted if something is like dense or complex enough. You take some notes before you run the adventure. It's usually fine. It's not going to kill you, but it is important. And it's not. You're right. It's not garrulous, but it's also like you can be. I think it's in some cases it's kind of like it kind of under identifies. So sometimes it's not as egregious as in some cases I've seen. Like so it's not just like one sentence, but sometimes you read something and this is an encounter. The writer is communicating something to the DM, enough information so that the DM would understand how it works. And with this sort of weird occasional dream logic, it's already a bit harder or more challenging to extrapolate how something works. So then you would think like, hey, maybe you need to do more work, but it's not always the case. But yeah, I know a lot of these are the encounters on the way, I think mostly just some foreshadowing.
There's some monsters.
It's mostly there for like, it's color.
There are some monsters, but certainly lots of color. Yeah, like a structure that looks like the Destruction Contraption workshop, but it's not. It's fake. There is another attack by the Destruction. So number 7, there's another attack by the Destruction Contraption. Number 8, it looks like the workshop, but it's not. Number 9,
exactly.
I say number 9, by the way, is goofy because it just means that they get lost somewhere to the north. Yeah.
Oh, but that's actually so that's part of what I actually like about his schizoid writing style, is that it comes up with a lot of effects for his monsters that are not just damage, right? So a negative effect of like getting lost is okay. You would have to reorient, and oh shit, you're in the forest, you don't quite know where you are. I mean, in a real hex crawl, it would be a bit more impactful because now you just have a river and a railway, and that's about it. But like it's something.
I was going to say, I think it makes more sense in a campaign world, though obviously you still don't have a distance on it or whatever. But yeah, I think we'll move forward to the dungeon now, because I think you've seen he's good. There's lots of, if you want, in terms of our triad of like imagination, usability, and mechanical function. So far for the encounters and stuff, the usability is okay. Most of them you can probably just describe. It's not that hard. They're not crazy. There are some. it gets worse, and there are a couple where you're like, how is that going to work? But the imagination is very intense. It's not going to suit everyone, but it's very intense. And mechanical functionality, apart from a few missing details, there are things where he obviously decides he's not going to give you a mechanic for something because it doesn't matter to him. But certainly the monsters that we have encountered so far are interesting. They're doing interesting things, and they are mechanically functional, if not necessarily simple.
Well, I was gonna say, so the building again also makes no sense. Its bottom half is made of brown bricks, and I don't even know what. Can you have metal bricks? Is that a thing? You know that, right?
No,
you can't have metal bricks. Well,
aren't those just ingots?
Yeah. Is it made of ingots that are not? Yeah. How would the ingots be connected? Because they're not one solid. It doesn't really.
Are they soldered together? Or are they welded together? Or are they just? There's mortar. It's like it's like a bricklayer. Winston Churchill used to like build random walls just as a hobby, and so it's just Winston Churchill like getting gigantic steel bricks and putting mortar on them, and then putting another one on top of it.
And the tracks are made of green steel bars, so this is made of Reardon metal.
Mm-hmm.
You've never read Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, have you?
No, of course I'm not.
Right. Oh, damn. Okay, well, too bad.
I think when the universe, I like reading good fiction. When the universal view of Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead is like they're not very good fiction. That's my.
I will. Let's save the Atlas Shrugged discussion for another time. But yeah, it's a bizarre structure. It's a giant square, and the only way in is the green Reardon metal rails. They go in via the ceiling, and you can climb up. Although there's definitely ways to get out. But there was one thing I was going to say. So this dungeon, it is like you don't need to keep track of torches, or so you think in the beginning. Because
it's usually, except in one or two cases, it is usually lit.
Yeah, but when I was running this, this actually it was actually kind of fun that it had so you have these light spiders everywhere that don't really seem to do much. And I had completely neglected to bring any sort of lantern or light sources for myself as a result, after my items got eaten by one of the monsters there, because that's I think one of the things that he does is interesting, is that you have monsters that attack your items in like your mundane items, because I think it's like junk metal or something like that, or a weird sticky ball that
there's a sequel that just
carries you away to it scatters the characters. It carries you to a different part of the dungeon or something like that. But my lantern got eaten, and I was like, my flint and steel too, and I was like, well, fuck you. I'm not. Yeah, it doesn't do anything anyway. Like you just have the damn light spiders, and then the random encounter goes off where all the light spiders go out for an hour.
Yeah,
that was great, because then and then you get another random encounter, and you have to fight in the dark. And, that was okay.
There's complete chaos. No, I think it's an interesting piece of design, partly because it says, "Oh yeah, no, don't worry, light resource sucks. You shouldn't use light resources." Wink. The light spiders obviously also can be infected by the souls of Masakra and become dangerous.
Well, yeah, but so there's another one where they form like a swarm, and they can attack. But I don't think you're supposed to track discrete light spiders, right? So it's
no. But what I mean is there's ways in which this generic light situation, which seems like it's a simplification. Oh, don't worry about tracking light. Suddenly becomes really annoying. Like it becomes really dangerous to you as a player, as a set of characters. I quite like the light spider drawing, by the way. I think that is an actually good one.
It's charming. Yeah, I don't mind it for sure. Yeah. And a more vintage art. This is the titular Destruction Contraption.
Of which there are many versions and many sizes and many forms.
Yeah, that's right.
This is one thing, is that some of this does just seem like peyote dreams, doesn't it? Like I saw a cube with some spheres and some tubes and some sockets.
Yeah, but that's the charm of it. It feels like it was written in a dream state, but it sort of works actually. You can run this. It sort of works.
Yeah,
but there are definitely some caveats.
Let's say that the person be like, should I buy this module? like I feel like has an incredibly strong sense of whether or not it's viable as like a thing they'd want to run with, and could run with a straight face.
It's just a curiosity that works.
Yeah,
That is how you
yeah.
should think of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's. I was going to say
More
you've then got
beautiful art.
frequent encounters. So you have like a monster manual basically for the purpose of this book. It is a lot like lots of science fantasy. One thing that in terms of this being science fantasy of a form, is the way in which it has just a totally new bestiary. There's literally no normal monsters in this entire module. So
Yes, that's right.
yeah,
There's
it is very much its own setting. I guess Carcosa might be like that as well.
yeah, like some. I guess Carcosa would use. Uses all of the Lovecraft monsters and maybe some mutated dinosaurs. So
Yeah.
but yeah, for sure, yeah, it uses, of course, all unique creatures that are mostly pretty bizarre.
So yeah, I think that's potentially an appealing thing, and it does mirror a normal subsurface environment, though ASC is more straightforward than this. But I think, it gives. So you get a bestiary, then you're going to get an encounter table, then you're going to get the room key, and we'll get to the room key. Well, we'll get to the room key maybe next. Let's look at a couple of monsters, I guess, just for fun, because you love the monsters. Let's say that's one of the big things that you like about this is the monsters. I think.
Love is a strong word, but I did think that they were like. Again, it's not that I'm not going to say like, oh, this is a work of art, right? It's brilliant.
I'm not going to
No.
pretend it's good,
Well, I think it's interesting. That's, I think,
Yeah.
the best way to describe it. And well, this one, these Sons of Mabla or whatever, it's this is just an armor class 8 one hit dice creature that does 1d2 damage, right? Which
Yeah.
I think actually if you play Labyrinth Lord by the book and you die at 0, 1d2 is actually probably a lot more fair than 1d6 if you want to.
Yeah. Well, I suppose if you're like
Yeah.
if you're second or third level, your fighters might be on like 5 or 9 hit points or something, or like 11 hit points. So yeah, it may feel a bit less brutal. He then has iterations on this. He has this screaming son who just you become deaf for 1d4 hours. There's a later super screaming son who makes you flee. The giant son here is a giant version, but who doesn't hurt you. Is bigger, but if they hit, puts you to sleep. He's like
it just puts you to
puncher.
sleep. He just he gives you a little tap and you go to sleep. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And then the Souls of Massacre don't do. I mean, they can do stuff.
They kind of rev up and then they turn into monsters.
Yeah.
Now, if you
they
go
don't do
down
anything on their own. They don't just sit there and do stuff.
Yeah.
It's that as stuff interact, as you interact and as stuff happens around them. So yeah.
No, but the one I would like to, or at least the ones I thought were more interesting. He has there's one that looks like a fried egg, but it's green or something like that, and it's like it captures.
The junk egg.
Yes, the junk egg. Yeah. Oh yeah, of course.
The brick inspector who doesn't do anything.
The brick inspector, the metal dog. So
the brick inspector. The metal dog head turns you into a dog more functionally.
We will get into the metal dog head, right? Yeah. So like the junk egg monster that it follows you and then it tries to capture people and then it dissolves your metal items thinking that they're junk, and then they have, just like an ooze, there's only one way to effectively hurt them, right? And you kind of have to like figure out how to do that. And it's not, if you it's a bit obscure. They do try it, and there's definitely a way to discover it just playing the normal game, because you have clubs and quarterstaffs, but it's not something you would immediately obviously try. And the penalty for doing so, it's like annoying. It's not really clearly described. This is a good example of like the vague writing style, like what a junk, what kind of metal items it would consider junk. But you have you can kind of infer, probably not gold, or like a magic item, maybe not. But then your regular iron items are maybe fair game. And this dog head metal thing too, where it's such a bizarre condition. It's a floating metal dog head with a spirit body, and then it attacks, and then it attaches to your head, and now you're
and turns you into like a loyal metal dog.
Yeah, this is.
You can
I
still
hope
go
it's
with your
not. But yeah.
friends. You can still play the dog. You can still play but you're like a human wearing a metal dog head. So
you
this
can
is
only do 1d4 damage. That's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
because you're like
Until
Bison
again you
people or
figure
whatever.
out a way to get rid of it.
Yeah.
There's a way you can discover through exploration, which is like electricity will immediately get rid of it, or you can deal damage, but the character will also take the damage. So it's like a health tax essentially. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think this is representative of all the monsters. Basically, is some of them do just attack you, they do damage to you, and that's fine. And there are traps. Similarly, there are a couple of things which are like here's functionally a trap. In mechanical terms. If you stay here too long, this happens. But nearly all the monsters, and I don't know, you'll have to tell us, is this normal for UDG? Nearly all the monsters aren't just custom, they are all custom, but nearly all the monsters have sort of kind of quite specialized mechanics for what they do and how you can defeat them.
Well, I think he's gone through a couple of phases. I know there's one other adventure, especially in low-level adventures. You do have a really there's another one. I think it's called like floaters in the Moz caverns or something like that, where
Mm-hmm.
The monsters, they don't kill you through damage because you're all going to be level 1 to 2, right? So that would be pretty easy. Instead, there's a sort of convoluted combination that they have to trigger. They have to plug you with a certain arrow first.
Yeah.
And then once you're marked, a different kind of monster can suddenly target you. And if you get hit, if you fail your save, you get stunned. And then when you're stunned, they have some sort of final attack. And if that one hits you even once, you're essentially out of the game.
Is this
So
like I've just finished rereading for the first time in like I guess 27, 28 years. Only You Can Save Mankind by Terry Pratchett, where it turns out the aliens in the Space Invaders type game are real and they're looking for help because they're trying to just get home. But I wonder how far this is the same thing where Unbalanced Dice Games is playing you. He's actually literally using a controller that you think is happening in your game. But like he's like, no, if I can get the three button combo, my monster can kill the PCs.
It's very like convoluted, but it's just a silly voice DM's dream. Yeah, that's right. The metal dog head monster. Yeah, that's true.
So I
This
think
is peak silly voice for sure.
I would say what this points me towards is not just it's a module that you want an experienced DM running, but probably it's a module. I don't know. I think sometimes you find that players who haven't played much D&D are kind of fine with whatever because they're not super expecting all the same tropes. But I'm not sure that's completely true. I think there is a thing where jaded, loose yellow book, like opium den players are going to get more out of this than you said about playing with Grandma and Timmy on holiday, because to some degree there, like players as you're starting to engage with the game, you want to give them a variety of things they can do, but certainly it's when you're like, oh, lots of the mechanics around combat, then it's normal for players to think, oh yeah, great. So we fight this stuff. And the hyper specialism of so many of the monsters does reduce the readability to players, I think. And they have. I think experience is going to matter here.
Well, I think there's a sort of, and I think that's probably also why I don't think UDG will ever. This is always going to be a very very just a niche, mostly just weirdos and jaded reviewers, I think, because there's a sort of paradox here. On the one hand, the type of audience that really craves kind of the super creative, non-conventional stuff, they also tend to be people that are not very, they're not too fond of usually the mechanics part or the combat part. Yes, the LOTFP players want to operate under the old comics code at the table. That is it. Yes, correct. Right. But what I was going to say, that is it aesthetically. But the problem is, so on the one hand, you have people that are inclined to they want like stimulation and novelty, right? Those are usually not the same people that are very much into the mechanical aspects of it and the mechanical
Yeah.
combat. Whereas a lot of these effects in in the game, this is like related. This is kind of like gamey. This is definitely
So, as in
interacting with
your
the game
feeling is
mechanics.
that this is more gamer gaming in terms of who's going to appeal to than. So, as in, it's less the people who are playing like a 3-act. They're playing a version of Ken, just hang out with their friends once every 3 months.
The aesthetics are like Troika player,
Yeah,
weirdo,
that's kind of what I'm saying. Is
bizarro
that's what it comes
aesthetics.
across like. Yeah, that's what it comes across like. But the mechanics won't appeal to those people. You'd suggest.
Oh
because...
no! If you look at the look at the map too, right? If you quickly go down, go to those maps.
I can do
that. These things are fucking huge. Those are 10-foot
yeah.
squares. If you have a guy in plate mail, this is like you move it like 60 feet. So even if you tune the random encounters to like once every 3 turns, this is kind of going to be sloggy. There's empty rooms there as well. So if you're like the kid that gets if you need like your dopamine hits, you need your novelty, you're going to have like all these empty rooms that like you get nothing again. You get understimulated. You get ADHD attacks. So it's like it's this combination of very bizarre aesthetics and then gameplay that's actually kind of this is
gamey.
Grindy. Yeah, it's not
but also
bad per se. There's interesting
grindy
stuff in there. But sorry.
But so because gamey doesn't equal grindy, but you're saying it's both. Yeah.
No, it's both.
Yeah, there's a time preference issue there, isn't there? Like, as in, you could again, in terms of who this is for. Let's say you're like, me and the boys. We meet up for 6 hours a month. I'm actually thinking of I forget whether it's a Discord server or somewhere else where someone was like, we play one Saturday a month because we live all across the site from Kansas to Oklahoma and stuff.
Right.
And that will, of course, include our friend Gus, who lives in South Oklahoma. But yeah, all these people driving to one place, and it takes them 8 hours to get there or 6 hours to get there, and they play for 8 hours and then go home. I think there's an interesting thing of like, is the time preference thing going on here worth their time? And I think that might be debatable, especially if it's Grandma and Timmy, but like even if it's actually quite serious players, but where maybe there's a fairly high sacrifice involved.
Well, if you're serious players, then you're going to run into another problem that this adventure has, and that's it's not as bad as in other UDG. So serious players with a very high time preference because of time constraints. This one doesn't have it as much as other UDG, but the treasure amount is actually quite low. It's not as bad.
Well,
let's
get some rooms up. Let's get some rooms.
Yeah.
I mean, there's when you say it's not as bad, there's almost, in a sense, virtually no treasure.
Correct. So yeah, that's true. Occasionally, like you really get like little trinkles, like a couple of hundred. I think there's one major hidden treasure in one of these areas that has like a crushing wall somewhere or something like that that you can retrieve. And there's a reward for getting Mabla himself. I think the most lucrative is at some point you meet like he's trying to make some women, which are like android wives.
The women.
Yes,
there's multiple types of women that he's making.
Yes, he's making women, and the women are like, "Will you marry us?" And he makes it clear they're not hot, right? But if you agree with that, they're like, "Okay, meet us outside," and then you get a bridal treasure of 1,000 GP for every person that gets married. But then you have a wife that you have to take care of.
It says like the DM decides if the marriage is successful or not.
Yeah, exactly. And if it's fucked up, then you lose all of your gold, right? It's just
and more. They take back the 1,000 and 1,000 more. Like they take back
1,000 more. Yes, but you would get the XP. You would get the 1,000 XP.
Oh no, you do. I do think niche levels of treasure. Getting into a lifelong compact, what God has joined together, let no man put asunder, is possibly.
Plain looking android woman that this mad hermit inventor has created. Yeah, that's right.
So I think that's debatable. But yeah, basically, if you think that you want your players, let's say there are 6 players, you want them to be taking home about 12,000 gold because there's no magic XP. So you want them to be taking. Well, they don't need 12,000 gold, but XP for combat is also all over the place and not necessarily very good.
XP for combat is so. That's the point. Like that's
it's very variable.
it's going to be like a lot of these monsters are like 10 XP a pop or something like that, or 20. That's not that's even in a game where you don't have any living costs and all that stuff. It's going to be pretty dry. So that's that's definitely a bit, that's a real problem, right? If you that's why I said also, like, if you actually intend on playing this, make sure you have a group that plays relatively quickly. If your group is slow, you're never going to fucking get through this this thing. It's too big.
Yeah, so I think so as a thing you need to fix, you need to be putting in decent incentives, given that how reliable it is.
You know, if you check out bottom half, that's pretty good treasure. That's a you can get the bottom half of a destruction contraption with levers and wheels, and you know, you have it's like a robot horse that you can ride, and it improves your armor
It's a
class
good
by 2.
as a magic item. Like, so again, the
Just
issue isn't that
rules,
there's not inventive stuff, but of course it's not. It's you don't get XP for magic items anyway in BX / Lab Lord. But the point is, it's treasure, but it's not XP. I'm actually thinking about the sheer mechanics of treasure of XP budget stuff, which you do, you should bear in mind is, how much gold can people get out of this? How much combat XP can people get out of this?
Oh yeah.
And I think the fact that it's very sparse on treasure, and most combat XP is quite low because it's their low HD creatures without special abilities, so they're usually like 10, 20 XP. I'm not sure how you're leveling up doing a 72 room dungeon and then probably not leveling up. So you'll probably need to fix that if you're running this in a serious game, not just like, hey guys, we play this and then when it's over, we'll do something else. If you're running it in a campaign or in a serious game, you're going to have to put stuff in, I think.
I think you'll probably level up. I'm trying to like these the major monster is the Destruction Contraption proper, which is just I guess it's, if you just look at the stats, it's actually just an owlbear. Sorry, it's similar to an owlbear. It just does D8 damage, has a 10-foot reach, and has 5 hit dice, and some sort of this charged explosion attack.
That's 500 XP, as in, so one version of it here is 500 XP. The Souls of Massacre are 29 XP. The Sons of Mablar are 10 XP. That's just in the first few rooms, to be clear, that we're talking about here.
And you're going to get a ton of random encounters because it's such a large it's a large place.
Even if, as you say, even if you're checking default every 3 turns, there is, by the way, I'm trying to remember, I think, is it a monster, is a room which says doing this takes 10 rounds, but this version of it takes a full turn. I take it that was actually an error, like a typo.
No, that's correct, because Lab Lord has the idiot round. So a round is 6 seconds, I think.
So 10 rounds is a minute. I was wondering.
Does not use a minute. 100 rounds is 1 minute. Sorry, 100 rounds is 1 turn. That's right.
That's awful. There's cool stuff, like you can release the souls very early on, very high on the northern end of that map, or whatever it is, the western end of that map.
Yeah.
You can free all the souls of Massacre. So that's nice. There's a nice little payoff there.
And then you remove them from the random encounter table. Yeah, and it has other stuff like that where you can.
So there's interactivity, and there's. I was going to say, a lot of the kind of, a bit like with Stonehelm, a lot of the juiciest stuff is deep on the second level. How with Stonehelm, the top 5 levels get increasingly interesting, but you're still like, oh, these are fun, these are well made, these okay. Sparse on treasure again, actually. But then you go into the lower half, the second book, and you're like, oh, everything is crazy now. Obviously everything is crazy from the start here, but a lot of the kind of some of the most interesting stuff is very much in the second half of the dungeon, I think.
I agree. There's also something to be said for, I think Stonehell is stingy, but this is positively, like, this is Scrooge. It's not, like, it's gonna feel like Scrooge McDuck, right? Even if you get nice, you have these brick inspectors have they have gold with them, and their only ability is they'll summon other monsters to fight the enemy.
They summon the giant sons of Mabla.
That's right.
To come and put you to sleep and then rob you.
That drop floor, drop ceiling. Oh yeah, this is it's some areas you showed the map previously where the center of the factory is like, I mean, I guess it's not really a place that's like, there's not a lot of verisimilitude to it, but this would be the actual workshops and that sort of stuff. And then in a ring.
It's like your other favorite factory, Blood and the Chocolate.
Oh no, this is a much better factory. This feels more factory-like. But all the dangerous, quote unquote, weird random pressers or gears or that sort of stuff that's located in the chamber sort of surrounding it. And yeah, this what you see here again. You have what is it? Oh yeah, a dish with what looks like gold. To get the dish, you have to be on the floor when it drops. So that's very dangerous. But there's another part which is actually probably 10 feet over the speed control. Wait, can you go to the map? To the
we can do that.
To see if the speed control is this is like if there's because it's gonna
this
be
is
like
number 9.
20 feet over.
Looking for number 9.
Yeah, no, 17 and 18 is what you're looking for. It's lower level. You're here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sorry.
So you have the speed controls, and then on the lower level, which is 17, and then 18 and 16 are some sort of crusher floor. And if you would wanted to get the gold, you can turn off the crushing floors with the speed controls, but but it's 10 feet over. I mean, I guess there's a way if you would approach it from the south and then move east to north, you could maybe stumble upon it, go, oh shit, where that looks interesting. But what's probably going to happen is you're gonna hit those speed controls and then go, oh okay, how does that work? But wait, can you go to 17 again? I do want to see if you're able to operate and figure out the purpose of those controls.
The actual room, we can go to the actual room probably. Let's
Crack Jerk. We will get to Crack Jerk, one of the many nefarious villains of the Destruction Contraption.
Crack Jerk is Prince's alt. Here we go, 17, yeah.
The monster Crack Jerk, yeah. So if the party looks at them again long enough, sucks. You usually give a real description, like 1 turn, but long enough, sure.
They do
say you have to be in one. You have to have been in one of these chambers before you can. You have to make an intelligence attribute check. Okay, that's well, whatever.
But so there are some oddities which I think the irony is this doesn't reflect non-play. This reflects play, but it's a bit like it's the junior version of your experience of Journey to Malabulge. This is fairly transparent, to be clear. But where you're like, okay, there's this kind of crap brew like AD&D spin-off with it's like Rollmaster's insane cousin, and you've got to learn all these rules to understand all the stuff that's going on in the rest of the module. You've got to understand the rules assumptions, and that's not because they're not playing it; it's because they are playing it. But it does make it hard for us to read. And here there's a similar thing at a much less level that you're like, okay, so his time assumptions are probably just he's like, hey, you've gone into the room, I judge that's enough time now. Make
or if you say okay, we take some time to to examine the controls. It's more that I think having some hazard in one area of the dungeon and then having maybe controls or a way to sort of disable that hazard in another section of the dungeon is actually pretty interesting, right? It's like having a switch that opens something else. But then he's probably writing it like stream of consciousness and just going like, okay, yeah, here's the pressure, here's the pressure, here's the controls.
The Archon is desperately trying to get down the information whilst he's in possession of the body of Prince Nothing.
So the what do you call that? The switch is 20 feet away from the thing it's operating. Now it's not the worst thing in the world. And then this is one of the, what is it again? You have a dish. There's 200 GP in the dish, and there's a pearl, and the dish is 500. Ivory and has the outline of a dagger in it. And if you pull on the outline, the dagger pops out.
It's an ivory dagger +1 with underwater. I would say that's a cool piece of magic item, and I'm not against that as a discovery mechanism. So, of course, we are saying that on the first level, that's like the first significant treasure link on the first level.
Maybe the only one, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a bit of this that you're like, great. So you're looking forward to your 7. And yeah, like your second level, so 700 XP is great. You're not going to sniff at it, but it's not very much.
You can play this at first level. I think you
Yeah,
would have maybe some problems with the destruction contraption, but 6 people first level could easily do this. That's how that's what I
you did
sort of
first level,
tried it
yeah,
with.
yeah. 6 people with longbows and oil,
And
yeah,
oil, and burning oil, yeah, of course,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, this is just all an argument for AD&D, though, isn't it? Stop the meta being so wonky. There's a door to somewhere. It takes you to one of the other doors. When
it's a random door.
they're in front of a random door.
Okay.
Thing resizer.
So the thing
there's a fixer.
resizer.
The fixer can heal you.
Wait a minute. Okay, no, two of these. This is big. Okay, so first the thing resizer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He's been reading B1. Both of these feel like B1 things, don't they?
Well, couldn't you use the thing resizer to resize all of your gold?
Do you think he's thought? I mean, yes, you can, but do you think he's thought about that, or
no? This is just written down of like, oh, okay, they'll use it on an item or something. It's just you have a wonky idea and you don't even know how it will be used. And to an extent, when you're writing an adventure as like an open-ended area, sometimes you can justify that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not everything needs to be.
Well, I think it's rather that it's natural that happens.
Hole.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Rather, it's natural that happens because not everything you write gets fully heat tested, and so sometimes something will slip through that even with your best efforts doesn't quite work.
No, but also sometimes you write something because you're trying to think of like a real, even if it's fantastic, right? You write something as though it were real, and then you'll put things in that don't necessarily have a purpose in the game, but that that would be there if it was a real place, even if it's fantastical. And then the players find a use for it, or later on you think, oh, what if they try to, something like that. But
I was going to say, in the end, them resizing the gold in this random place, especially because of the number of ways in which this place can be destroyed, isn't a big risk to the campaign, I should say. I just think it's an interest. What I mean is there's some things where if he hasn't got that in mind, there is the risk of something happening that gets really heavily abused, if not everything has been fully stress tested.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think
this is also
thing resizer, I would say just give it a 10% chance to break down every time or something, or cumulative chance to break down.
Lynch is right. This is the other thing, is that when I say it's like a B1 thing, the resizer is very much like a B1 kind of the module B1, and so it's the kind of goofy thing.
Yeah, like a whimsical. That's strange. What do we do?
Or anomalous subsurface environment. But of course, if players learn that things just are often dangerous, they don't try them. So I think it's interesting. I guess the thing is, as soon as something happens where they realize the person they've resized is now 50% smaller or something, that might affect what they do in the future. It might make them more gun shy about it, and about future things. Equally, though, I guess being able to benefit from it by spamming coins is great. The fixer, I think the fixer is the example where it says, 10 rounds to heal a character 1 full turn. That was my confusion. But yeah, so the fixer can res everyone once. You have a on-site raise dead.
Is it once, or is it
every individual person once? He will not do it again, it says, doesn't it?
Oh yes, it will bring back to life any dead character once, and damaged characters can be healed as well. Right. That's so if you find this room fucking rules, right? You put this here, and this is and I think he does it in one other adventure as well. But yeah, I mean, in a 72 dungeon, I actually think that this is not it's not bad. It's a bit, what do you call it? It's almost like a little bit gamey. I guess it fits thematically, and it's pretty cool. And you do have to you have to interact, right? You can't, if you say fuck you, a liquid metal
and
robot
kill him,
thing, liquid metal Terminator thing, get the fuck away from me.
You get 10 XP, No, I agree. I think I put some things like that, or like there's a scroll of raised dead, or there's a cleric nearby who will heal you or something. I'm happy to put, like, as in, I'm happy to put that stuff in modules, including low level ones. I think having a bit of generosity to players on that, if they put the effort in to engage with the content, to explore the world, to find stuff, isn't bad. Otherwise, what you're saying is, look, until you are in a big, until you get to the big city and you have 5,000 gold spare or whatever it is, you can't rate. You're like, it's part of it leads to a kind of mudcore death spiral at some level of saying, look, everyone should die lots and it should stay like that. You want it to be that players are making choices and decisions about raise dead rather than like it's not available to them until they're really high level. Either they're casting it themselves or someone they can afford to get someone else to cast it.
Yeah, and here I think it's I don't mind it as much also because I mean if it's a real ass cleric or a real raised dead scroll, then you immediately know what you're in for, right? But with here,
Yeah,
it's kind of like a reward
yeah,
for if you
yeah,
do.
for interacting. Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
yeah. So in fairness, in terms of us comparing this to B1 or ASE, and Lynch's good point about people get scared, there is definitely a degree to which you interact with stuff here, you might just get smashed. But here, there's a good encounter, wholly positive, the fixer, and the thing resizer can be really good. E does say that it is just halfling fans doing anything to get around 4th level limit on fighter classes.
I think only inorganic objects work, by the way.
Yeah.
So that unfortunately that doesn't. Yes, some rooms are just again, it's just waste your time. It's just a room filled with water.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it says inorganic with the things resizer.
Yeah.
It's fine.
There's a trapped junk egg, empty power station, trapped green blur sappers. The green blur sappers are nasty, potentially.
They're just it's just what is it? It's Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia in his green man outfit, and he touches you, and he has to. It's like a shadow, but he has to touch you multiple times. Yeah,
3 times.
it's such a weird again weird setup. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this room has a box, and here we are. The females, the daughter versions of Mablar's sons, lounge around here. They've got like a. Is this? Yeah, this is where they want to marry you. This is Prince's favorite one. He hasn't told his wife, but this is actually.
That's. I thought that this was. I don't know. There's just something charming about this stuff. And it is. The bizarre thing is, it's not again. It's definitely fucking rickety in places, but like there are he does think about this thing as an actual fucking game. There are like game mechanics to it,
and there's second order effects. It's like if this happens, then you also have to think about this. Like what you find with a lot of spat out stuff that's kind of fun and imaginative. Like oh, that's a fun idea. Is that it's all first order thinking, like, and then this happens.
Right.
Or to be fair, sometimes it goes the opposite way. It's like it has this massive concept that you're like, that's never going to work or happen in game, so who cares? Whereas he is like, this happens, then this happens. The crazy thing is, I think in terms of the paint huffing, the fact he is like, and you mentioned we might come back to this, but in terms of campaign assumptions, he's like, yes, you could just put this in a forest, and then your players have got these weird android wives who they have to keep happy.
You have to, yeah.
That's the weird thing is he's kind of assuming that will be what happens.
It's just a sort of yeah, you know, the DM is going to make it at least annoying. You know, you have to at least pay living costs for them or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's
right. You're gonna have to drag them everywhere. Maybe put them up in a city somewhere. They're gonna complain. Yeah, for sure.
There are other.
It's just such a bizarre extra step of like, oh yeah, you can have a wedding.
There are other daughter, Mablar's daughters who are like farmers as well, aren't there?
I think so. Yeah.
So this is interesting. This is the first time you might meet Mablar. Mablar won't fight. He's willing to hang out with you. You can help him fix something. You know, this I think a thing in terms of UDG fitting, probably been quite satisfactory for the unusual combat diagonal people who are like, I want combat to come up sometimes, but I like being able to avoid combat. Is that so many of his encounters are super interactive, not the random encounters, and there'll be a lot of them, wandering monsters. So that's in the negative column for that person. But in the plus column, usually if there is a set piece encounter, it's interactive rather than fighting.
Yeah, although again, it's in this sort of conversational style where if he's like good, if there's like clarity, then usually he considers like, okay, it's you know, it's almost like he considers it like, okay, this is how the encounter wants the characters to behave, and this is what happens if they don't. And it's not necessarily the case that you know, playing along is always rewarding and not playing along is always bad. There's actually a good trade-off between it. But yeah, here too, like you know, in a later encounter too, he'll offer to maybe that the character should he'll try to bribe them, just go away and that sort of stuff. He's trying to kind of like give the characters an easy out. And if you look on the map, that room has like 4 or 3 secret doors, I think, that he can run through, and you have to like chase him. And he'll run to an area where there's a destruction contraption ready that he can like he'll activate it. And
for the Destruction Contraption 2 area.
Sure.
Yeah, so it's interesting. The interactions are, again, just these, like, he warns the players, the party, that is, so the characters, the Destruction Contraption might go off, so you need to be careful about not being near it.
No,
You can help
it's
them.
just to sort of this is to sort of explain to the characters that he's going to keep sending his destruction contraption to destroy villages.
Yeah.
Make it very clear.
Do you think UGG was like some South Vietnamese farmer who got like his village napalmed?
No, I don't think he is. I think
he's writing this from Vietnam.
I think it's a very troubled individual, but with a very nice creativity that I enjoy.
The man's name is Crack Jerk.
Okay, we'll cover Crack Jerk. Okay, yeah, I mean, I guess we can cover Crack Jerk. That's like the sub boss.
Yeah, who's worse than Mabla? Like, he's both more dangerous, but also possibly more like upsetting.
Can you zoom in on that image? I just want the audience to
sort
of appreciate.
I can I?
Yes. Okay. Go back to Crack Jerk. Not the observer. No. This is like some extraplanar entity that's Crack Jerk. Okay. Well, that was good. That was good.
No, I can't zoom in.
Just leave it like this. Yes, he has a sort of what is it? Oh yeah, it's a metal arm that sprays save or death. If he hits you, it's a save or death save, and then you're fucking dead. And he has money, possibly.
Oh yeah, if you kidnapped Mabla, then he will pay the ransom.
Appear.
And then they have some gimmicky thing which just stops you from getting back into the workshop.
If you take the bribe, there is something. This is also where he is also fucked up. Normally, if you're if you're an adventure writer, then these sorts of conditions where if you don't know where you would encounter Mabla, then you would want to cover like what happens when you capture him. You would want to cover that not in a separate room key, because it's going to happen like independently of any single room. Then you want to cover it probably either before the dungeon, maybe on the level where you think it'll happen, but definitely not in a random room key, because then it'll get missed. And that sort of stuff.
I was going to say there is an organizational thing where you kind of get some stuff at the start and some overview stuff, and maybe in the treehouse about like, oh, by the way, this, and then it's like, oh, here's the encounters and this is how it works, whatever. So there's some of it which is that overview level stuff, but I would say for the workshop, an overview of the key things and what you need to know is essentially completely lacking. Like, as you say, the issue of the fact that obviously the adventure now is to capture Mabla or to kill him for a half reward. Or whatever it is. So you want to be doing that, but it doesn't give you, I find, I did notice as I was reading, I was like, I want cross references for rooms. This thing is in this room, that sort of thing. Occasionally, when it really matters for a trap or for an interaction, it does say this room. But other times, it just says, oh, if the players have done this or something, and you're like, okay, I kind of remember that. And you're going to end up having to write in the margins, aren't you, to kind of know where things are. And so in terms of what we've said about layout, by that I mean usability, not layout specifically. In terms of the writing, you probably need that. You need that organizational overview so that you can run it better. And it doesn't help the DM to do that, I don't think.
No, I mean, you would. I mean, as soon as you have a little bit of experience under your belt, you would just make notes on like, okay, this room connects to this room. Please keep this in mind. If Crack Jerk is still alive and they capture Mabla, then Crack Jerk shows up with the. I keep saying Crack Jerk. It's such a what? This crack naming jerk, is like Ordru and Crack Jerk and Mabla. It's like just like it's so good. But
it's possible that it's like the writing is by like weirdo Uncle Ian, but like the drawings and the name are all by the nephew at the family holiday.
it's all coherent as far it's its own bizarro little corner, but but yeah, you would try to like sort of isolate that, and I think room 4 leads to room like 26, where Mabla will probably, I keep wanting to say Yakub, by the way, but it's Mabla. Mabla, right?
He is the Yakub of D&D.
He is literally making evil, pale creatures, right?
Well, no, I should say actually the Sons of Mabla are not evil.
That's right.
Like, to be fair, all these things he's making, I mean, the weird gizmos are bad, but like all the androids are kind of fine. Like, if they were if they're separated from Mabla, they're probably fine. And his son, his original son, is kind of a nice guy.
That's right. Yeah, here too, they're pleading that they didn't know that the village would be completely destroyed, and then Crackjerk is executing them in what seems to be a sort of like cinematic cutscene. But at least it's yeah. Well, they're doing something.
No, it's not Crackjerk. It's like a big son of Mabla who's just in Crackjerk's office executing them while Crackjerk is getting himself ready to do something. I don't,
And then
from a doorway, a man enters. He's wearing some strange-looking suit. The man looks at the party and picks up the metal arm. I did not order any more subjects for experiments. Guess I can pile your corpses on top of these. He says.
It's more.
The man's name is Crackjerk.
Guess I can pile your corpses on top of these. Like, it's more like you should have like 80s high school bully energy. Yeah, you can picture Crackjerk. Yeah, for sure.
And then he's just like got this kind of like fire hosey thing on it.
He's a save or death flamethrower or something like that. Yeah, poison flamethrower. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, the ceiling is like fires. You don't even want to know what he thinks this is either, do you? Frankly,
the description is again, he begins to spray the party with the liquid, and then each round, anyone who is 30 feet away from where he's facing, he means up to 30 feet away, I assume, right? And it's just,
not like literally at 30 feet. Yeah. So again, it's just a small writing issue, but these are prevalent. He's very loyal to. So yeah, it's very memorable. Again, it is of course funny that there's the cutscene thing going on. Yeah, where and the Sons of Mabla, who are lawful neutral, are like, we just set up the experiment and you murdered everyone.
Yeah,
yeah, they're trying to unionize. What if you have like that thing? Also, I often think, in campaigns. Not in campaigns. Sorry, when reading adventures that are like, oh, you could put this in a campaign. I know this is kind of its own thing. But like, what happens when players who have stuff they pick up in campaigns get access to a particular scenario? Because they just start screwing everything up, which is fun, by the way. It's actually part of the fun of being a DM running campaigns, isn't it? To be like, oh, okay, that's come up. But like, I've got a player who's had a single granted use of time stop on the character for 5 real life years or something.
Oh, geez.
And eventually, you just know this is going to come out as some kind of, when the players Rube Goldberg it, and by being like, if we do this for the time stop, we'll be able to completely bypass Orcus or something, that kind of thing. You definitely think what happens with these cinematic stuff. Essentially, if you're in a real game and players ruin the cutscene,
they can easily interrupt it. Yeah,
and it's more fun. That's more fun as well. What happens is the players rescue these Sons of Mabla, who are now like, oh, why were they trying to kill us? That's interesting, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, and I mean, I guess if you were, you could maybe do a little bit more with it. I think there's another occasion when you can. He hints at some things in earlier nonsensical encounters, and then it comes back later, where you can. I think you can at least get one of these newest Sons of Mabla as a retainer or something like that. It's all.
At the very end of the lower level, there are a couple of bonus Sons of Mabla, aren't there? Which I guess we can look at on our way. There's this weird, sexy mermaid with no hair, but like 10 pseudopods. You can hang out with.
Oh yeah, you can enhance your brain. Okay,
but you're not allowed to wear hats anymore.
Oh damn! But helmets don't do anything in
BX, so who cares? I literally thought that. I was like, there's no penalty in this version of the game because there's no ear seekers, there's no optional critical hit rule. Not how many people use that, I don't know. But weapon enhancement is the Son of Mabla who can, on a 5 and 6, makes your weapon better.
Oh, nice.
The weapon
for the rest of the adventure and the next one
will do. Okay. That's quite generous, I'd say. getting it. But yeah, it has a 1 in 6 chance of basically breaking it. Not immediately, to be fair, but just soon.
Oh, the intelligence is also. Oh, by the way, the
Yeah.
moving parts one is maybe the most fucked up. That's a.
Oh yeah, the metal part rock grubs.
What the
trick mirrors where you think everyone is turning into a son of Mablar.
That's fine, but wait, 19. Zoom in on that briefly. So that's just a room.
Yeah.
And there's he does this, I think, with other ones as well, where you'll have rooms that are very similar, but then one does something different, right? And in this one,
usually
you have
something
room.
bad. This is going to be a criticism, I suspect, from me. But like, yeah, the idea that one is a room of parts, the next is a room of parts, but you go in to get some parts, and they're actually rock grubs.
And the parts are actually rot grubs, which makes no sense, but they are.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, this is I only know this because I solo played it, but this is an extra fuck you encounter, because normally, if you get rot grabbed, if there's some asshole nearby with a torch or a lamp, you can quickly burn it out and do yourself some damage. But here, because there's light spiders everywhere, you're not likely to have a light source present.
So you have to light one if you've got them on you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Albeit it's
so you won't make the
10.
You
it's
won't
1d3
make the
turns.
No, if not stopped immediately, then the death clock starts going.
Oh yeah, at that point you need cure disease. Yeah,
that's right.
So yeah, essentially, if you don't have lit flame, you will not be able to. Yeah, I think that's also like a difficult wording that is not identical to say AD&D rock grubs and stuff, because it means that essentially, if you get more than one on you, which you automatically get, everyone dies. Like it's a TPK
AD&D,
encounter.
you have a round. I guess you would have to apply a torch. I don't know. Maybe the DM would say, sure, you can apply that torch. Well, one person can apply one torch per round. So maybe five of your friends with torches. If you get plugged 5 times with rod grubs, they can all jam those torches into your wounds. But
you must immediately apply flame to the wound or have cure disease, otherwise they will burst out and kill their host. Yeah, it's left in the same sort of, not to be fair to UDG, it's left in the same very slightly fuzzy state, isn't it? But yeah, given that seems to be an automatic TPK if you will go into the room.
No, you get it if you. I mean, I guess if you pick up
anyone
the
who
parts
picks
on
up
the ground,
parts,
there you go. Then they start burrowing. But you
so the
immediately
point
have
is
1d4 plus
2
rot grubs on your body. That's
what I mean. It's an automatic TPK. If you go to get the parts because you're like, oh yeah, the other parts room was good, let's go to this one.
No, it's not a TPK because you would only get a TPK if everybody said that they would be picking up metal parts and digging through them. Whereas if only one person would be digging
everyone
through it,
I guess yes, but if you all say we'll go into the room and get parts, then so this one, there is a path through it that circles back to the entrance. This was one of those weird rooms. If the path spends some time, as they do this, they may feel they are close to creating something important. Maybe they shouldn't stop. That which doesn't have any mechanics. It's just a thing you as the DM say, I guess, that it seems like they're making something.
Yeah.
The other, so in a sense, maybe to be fair, the moving parts room, there's no reason you would explore it. I guess.
Well, you don't know if you don't know if you would encounter the previous one before this one. It could just be like, okay, you see,
but that means if you're like, oh, we all go
parts,
and you go in and explore it and you all die. Now, of course, if you have torches lit, you could give a round reaction. That's not crazy or unreasonable. Because the rock grubs have to do an attack first. They're on you.
If you say, listen, I'm digging through like the metal. I'm going to dig through a pile of metal here, and then obviously the it's going to hit your hands, right? You're going to be in contact with the rod grub. I think I would rule that it doesn't really do the attack roll. I think with the 1E and the BX rod grub don't really make an attack roll. I think
but what I mean is I think you could rule there's a round in which they get on you and there's a round in which they burrow. That's what I'm saying. So that means that if you're 5 friends, you get, say you have 5 of them on you, you're on average it's 4 to 5, whatever. Like if you're 5 friends all light torches and burn them, and then they all die, but you then drag their corpses back to the fixer on the lower
you
level.
can just do that. Yeah, that's another one where actually, putting something like that in the dungeon immediately, and it's not a very lethal dungeon because of all the
no, it's not.
creatures
It's not.
that do. It's like a lot of nuisance effects, right?
Yeah.
Not a lot of creatures that do just straightforward.
I'd say
damage.
people are going to die, but it's not going to happen in the way that you're like, oh yes, we encountered 2 trolls, and so we all died.
Or if it's level 1 or 2 BX, it could just be like, okay, 1d4 random skeletons and they got initiative, and
and they just they all hit you. They all hit you. Yeah. Wood characters. You can learn to make wood statues. That's the thing you can do in this game.
Why would you want to? But yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You can go and get his aluminium with it. One of the dummies holds a pair of scissors in one hand, the other is a metal torch. It works for a month and runs out of fuel, so it's a blowtorch, but kind of anyway.
Yeah, too much. Okay, the newest sun I think is pretty interesting, but I think that's another problem where with this sort of weird dungeon design, if you don't, you kind of need. I think players need a sort of feedback in order to interact with, keep interacting with the dungeon. And I think if you have too many strange rooms where you're like, what the fuck is this? I don't get this, or nothing seems to happen. I think after a couple of times, you're going to be inclined to say, whatever, right? And so putting some treasure, I think more frequent treasure probably, or another way to like reward interaction, and there are definitely rewards here, but more more feedback,
some of the rewards are weird and abstract, like you learn to sculpt wood statues in 20 minutes.
Fuck that, yeah.
Or you get a torch, but then Mablau wants it back, which is fine, but it's just if it's grasped it. What does it say? If the party has him, he'll bargain for his reuse by offering to make 2 suits for them. It takes him an hour to make each suit. These are the same things he wears. AC is dropped to 0. Their personal suits last longer 6 months each. So you can get good armor out of it. If you've got Mablar and you've got the blowtorch, basically, then he will make 2 suits for you. That's great. A good armor, but again, there's no XP there. So it's a very erratic, and this is partly a problem with BX, to be fair. Tiazzi clear, not UDG. There's very erratic reward mechanism. Sometimes there's no reward, or it's very small. Sometimes it's kind of weird and abstract. Sometimes it's good, but it's not. There's no XP involved because it's just it's part of what he likes about interacting with. Oh, I interact with this NPC and this device. And then we get to the last couple of things. The suns, the newest sun and Mablar's greatest sun.
You can find these. I think with the newest sun, somebody is in like suspended animation, and if you interact with them in the right way, it's essentially you can get a very volatile henchman to help you out,
walk around with you.
Confrontation, for sure.
With Mablar. And then the greatest son is like Satan. Basically, is that Mablar realized he'd made like too powerful a son and put him in a prison. And he wants to take over. The place belongs to me, not you, old man. Wants to take over the factory. And then the workshop disappears and you're left behind just with Mablar's body if they encounter each other.
Oh, it's a whole cinematic scene that he's made. Mablar with the sword stuck in his gut falls to the ground dead. The sun waves goodbye to the party, and then it's like it's like the Wizard of Oz or something. Your eyes go blurry, and then the workshop is just totally vanished because it's like he's conjured it forth from his mind. It's like a weird dream for sure.
And so now the greatest son has just taken it elsewhere, because it's just a construct.
Or something like that, or maybe you don't know what it means.
He does have an attack pack. He does have an attack routine uniquely for the entire module. He attacks with a part of the contraption
twice,
and then with a sword. So it's 1d6 plus 1d10 basically. He has 2 attacks.
He's not that.
Not
that dangerous.
Indeed, it's Mabla Lupercal has been corrupted again by Lorgar. That guy, Lorgar, has entered D&D just to ruin stuff.
I think anything with AC4 is still it's a little bit challenging, but 3 hit dice AC4.
Hittable.
It's not nothing. 18 hit points is high,
Doable.
but you can.
It depends how many PCs you've got. If you're trying to stop this guy, and you've got like 6 PCs, out of that,
all
3 are
throwing
fighters.
burning oil at plus.
Oh yeah,
one
no, indeed, that's the thing. Actually, here's the thing. Your point is, you're like, no. What you need to do is completely game the system. So like, classes don't matter, etc. I think it's something. Yeah, certainly if you imagine a normal mixed group with mixed equipment, 3 fighters or something, and there's a spell. Maybe someone's got magic missile. To be fair,
or
and
sleep.
they've got it, and they haven't used it. They haven't used it either. So I'm talking about making sure you can get damage down on this guy. 18 hit points, 4 AC is doable, but it's like lots of other BXy things. It's so like you say, 4 skeletons is swingy, let alone a guy who you could one shot in a round. Like you could win initiative and someone has +1 strength, hits with their longsword, that's half his health. Like
right.
9 down. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all pretty volatile for sure.
Yeah. And that is a criticism. It's one reason that you and I don't play BX, I think it's fair to say. But it's something which I guess there's an expectation in the meta here. You got to just think, yeah, in this game, that's what's going to happen, and the players are going to enjoy it or not. You know?
Yeah, I mean, when I still played Lab Lord, I would always have people start with max hit points and that sort of stuff to kind of give them. It's not a lot of fun if you get taken out by a random orc in round 1.
Oh yeah, indeed. That's the thing. Is it feels bad as a surprisingly important like measure of whether or not a game is good, isn't it? Do you actually think the game is fun when you're playing it, or are you just like, yes, it's a very good pure experience, but I don't enjoy it? You're not going to keep playing it. And I think,
well, yeah, I mean, you can make a more sophisticated argument based on whatever player agency and the ability to react and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, no, certainly
for
classic gaming. When we talk about kind of classic, the pillars of classic gaming, we sometimes talk about.
Sure.
Then yeah, player driven is a big one, and player driven doesn't just apply. And it significantly applies at the level of the game. You choose to go here. You make this decision in the dungeon, left rather than right, because left looks more safe, or whatever the decision points you want to discuss are. But that also applies in combat. Yeah, I agree. But I think the point is, it's a taste and see thing. Is that you realize if players are just going to regularly be like, okay, then probably you're onto a loser.
There's another mad professor he reminds me of, and it's Dr. Neo Cortex, perhaps, or maybe Dr. Wiley.
Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, yes.
Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, Dr. Jordan Peterson, all these mad professors. That's correct. Yeah. But like here, he gets into. That's why I'm thinking of like
we missed that. There's a room, by the way, where you can get in a box. Do you remember the room where you can fly around in a box?
And you get 150 movement speed and AC 2 or something, but you can't attack, and you
can't get out for a day
after a day. Yes.
Yeah, but it's like AC 0
rules
or something.
Yeah.
It's actually, and you can get you can breathe via the box, but you need food and drink. But there is like a hand-sized hole, so your friends are like sticking their hand up right into your body apparently to give you like a sandwich.
Right. Yeah. But you can use that to scout, right? Because
you
also have like
good.
50 temporary hit points or something like that.
Yeah. That's and no, if it breaks, you don't suffer. You just kind of fall out of it.
Right. So
it's a good encounter.
Another one where it's like a video game power up that if you're smart, you can probably figure out how to use that for scouting for sure.
There is one final room where if you haven't met and done stuff before, you can finally Mablar will try to give you 100 gold to leave and never come back. But otherwise, you fight him, Crack Jerk, and a Destruction Contraption.
He's in the Destruction Contraption, I think.
Yeah, that's what he's.
He's climbed inside it.
The point is, the Destruction Contraption fights you. Like, he's not piloting it. I think specifically, he's just like inside it, and it does its thing.
That's I mean, 5 hit dice and 1d8 damage per. This is like you're fighting an ogre almost.
Well, it's a save fighter 5. Yeah, save fighter 5.
Yeah.
And then there's the escape attack party of one of the small Destruction Contraptions and a son of Mablar, sons of Mablar. So yeah, I think you don't want to get into that combat. Is probably actually the solution to that. You want to weigh the odds there. I don't think if you're a party of 6 first and second level characters. I mean, to be fair, if it's like 3 second level fighters with decent HP, maybe it takes your chances, you know.
So I've run this. I've actually solo played this. So I've run this this scenario. I made one mistake, which is I forgot that one of my wizards was dog headed. But you can basically it's possible to get rid of the dog head condition. But the point is that we had that encounter, but Crack Jerk was already dead. So the first round started, and it was just a longbow fire. It was everybody longbow fired the Destruction Contraption. AC2, it's not easy to hit, but you can do it if you have a nice high dex, right? And it takes, I think it got off like one. It got off 2 twacks, right? And it rolled low, so it didn't quite hit the fighters. So that was bye bye Destruction Contraption. If you would have like Crack Jerk there spraying everybody with save or die oil or whatever it is he does.
Yeah, like the olive oil squeegee he has.
Olive oil of death, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
and then I don't know, like it's not bad in the sense that like they do a last you get a sort of rescue party to stop him. I'm not really sure how this encounter would work with the other suggestion that he's written under the Crack Jerk. I guess stop saying Crack Jerk, but under the jerk. Individual keying, right, where he says like, listen, if this guy's still alive, he's going to try to offer the players 1,000 GP if they hand over Mabla, and then some force field will prevent them from returning to the factory afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Sure.
I was going to say, again, that's stuff that you want to have in the overview, which says this is the kind of stuff that can happen. These are the interactions between them, and none of it is systemized. So, yeah, I mean, anyway, I'd say that is the adventure. We have actually got through the adventure there.
I think the idea here is if you encounter Mabla anywhere, he will, and he's like, you're attacking him, then he's going to try to run to room 26, and then you trigger the end
where he can hide inside a Destruction Contraption,
where he gets
and where he can be reinforced by Crack Jerk as well.
By Crack Jerk,
yeah. And so I don't know, what's your summary? What's your takeaway?
Geez. Well, my takeaway was that I hope that everybody enjoyed sort of like an odyssey into the Twilight Zone, into like the wild unknown, the fringes and the forgotten nooks and crannies of the OSR, where there's a lot of stuff that is actually there's not a lot of stuff that's like this. You have stuff that's outsider and it's just bad, or stuff that's obscure, and it's obscure because it sucks. This is again, it's just there's something about it that keeps pulling me back, and maybe I have a mental disability, quite possible, but there is something interesting about like all of these scenarios that he writes, and there's a lot of different there's a lot of variation to it as well. He experiments at some point. He makes a pretty much normal adventure, or as close to normal as UDG actually gets, and you can figure out that like, hey, is he using the monster manual more, or has he been he's using orders of battle and that sort of stuff, and the treasure is a little bit higher. So it's kind of broad, but it's just it's very different than the usual crap you run into.
So I mean, I think that's
playing it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's definitely a thing there of you can go and read a lot of polished, potentially even okay, decent like OSE first to third level modules. You can go and find some slightly kooky stuff, particularly say the older Dolmenwood stuff, or whatever, or some Zarchov Kowalski stuff, things like like, that's funky, absolutely. But it's rare to have something which is its absolute unique voice, and so it's a thing where probably we are maybe unduly affected by an aesthetic concern, but the fact it is so defiantly itself in a way that is recognized to be a module with something you're basically praising. It's not kind of garbage. It's not sort of like, hey, here's just some wacky stuff on a page. It is actually a module that has been played, and
I mean, and like, this is not if you're not, I mean, I said before, there's definitely fucking problems with it. It's going to be again, it's going to be pretty grindy. You have to be, I think, for a lot of like more modern players, it's also going to feel very slow because it's so big and you have empty rooms and that sort of stuff. So, like, I mean, you're gonna spend quite some time crawling through this thing. Rewards are too low. There's definitely problems with it, but at the same time, there's also like a, I don't know, kind of like interesting gameplay or design decisions to it. The aesthetic is just fucking all over the place and very bizarre. It was just weirdly fascinating. So yeah, I kind of like wanted to sort of show this.
Yeah, Nick's view is UDG modules are tough to customize into Sanity. I tried with What's Wrong with Wounderwell. I suspect they're best run head on at face value, sans cheat sheets, etc. Blind
Yeah,
faith, he adds. So the
yeah,
idea
I
that
agree.
you should see them as sui generis. They're just this thing where you're like, let's have a weird trip.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Ayahuasca, they call it the vine of death, kind of thing.
No, it's the
Yeah, no,
gateway to the gods, Owen. Yeah, that's
yeah,
right. You should take it on its own. Maybe it's the idea is maybe that it doesn't, like, you shouldn't try to like fit this into a coherent
yeah.
world. It's just like, okay, this is where Mabla lives. Yeah, okay, just go with
No,
it.
you should make your campaign world the world of UGG games. That's no one should be running their own game anymore. They should be running these kind of.
Should just be
They're
doing
like
this.
sort of psychic mimetic diseases that spread amongst players. Like I'm fighting Marbla today. Yeah,
Yes, it is good. It's like you're in a Star Trek episode, or
yeah.
you know,
Oh yeah.
talking like paw people. Yeah, no, but
I think my takeaway was roughly.
yeah,
Like I didn't mind reading it. I think definitely there was a sense of reading like a 65-page module or whatever. I wasn't super dense in terms of small text and stuff, so that helped. But there's definitely a lot of stuff, and I was like, okay, there's a lot of stuff here. It's not super well connected. There are things you as a DM. I'd say contra Nick's point, you as a DM probably want some sort of like reminder of the fact that X is connected to Y. Because otherwise
there's
you're going
like
to
a
get
lot of
confused. Yeah,
underlying. There is a
yeah,
sort of method to the
mm-hmm.
madness, I think,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
at least,
yeah.
there's a room full of wooden swords. Well, why would they have that? Because wooden weapons work against the jerk egg or the junk egg or something
Junk
like
egg,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, exactly. So you're gonna have to really internalize that, and I don't mind a bit of that. I think it does develop to the stage of a flaw. I think, but that's okay. Um, I enjoyed it. I thought there's some very fun ideas. I probably go a tiny bit more vanilla in my taste, but I do like some unusual stuff. I think if you like this but want something that's a bit straighter to run and easier to run, I'd look at an almost subsurface environment, which is like high octane science fantasy with a lot of unique creatures and a fairly old school kind of feel to the design and stuff, the dungeon design. Lots of similar weird contraptions in it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think if everybody tried to, whatever, if you try to imitate this, or
Yeah.
if that
Yeah.
would be a disaster. But I don't know. Like, again, it's that 1 in 20 roll, right? Like where
Yeah,
you're like,
yeah,
okay, this
and it's
totally
and I
different. Yeah,
yeah,
why not? Yeah.
I think I'd have to mull what this will be the test for me as I go forward, and maybe I'll read another UDG as well. Maybe I'll go and get one. But is that I need to think how far, because I could definitely imagine running it with a bit of prep and work for a convention or something like that, or part of it being like, I can imagine running it with some as a goofy thing where I'm like to my friends, come over for the day, we're going to play something weird.
Well,
But how far
the
I could, I don't really do that. I run campaigns, so how far I can get it into that, I don't know.
Okay, well, so if you would, the problem is that I think for a convention, these things are, a lot of his dungeons are pretty big, right?
Mm,
So if you try
yeah,
this one, or I think I've actually I've run, what is it, Broken Gods Pain, like 2 or 3 sessions on Pedantic with you know
yeah.
with the gentleman there. Um, these are, again, pretty big modules. So for a convention
Mm.
game, they're probably too big, and they have a lot of
Even with a
um,
day, even if you're doing a day of it, it's probably your view
yeah,
on
you
session
know,
length. Yeah.
if you go for a convention, you really want like high octane,
Mm,
fire, boom, 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 high density, high
mm,
octane.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
and these things also have a lot of, like, again, long ass fucking corridors. Okay,
yeah.
this room, okay, it's empty. It's more, it's a slower burn. So that's kind of like what I said. This is the paradox uh, of a lot of these adventures, are that is like, the aesthetic is totally weird, but then the gameplay is kind of like more like grindy and arcadey D&D. So
yeah,
it's
I
going
guess
to be a niche for people.
yeah, a designer we've talked about, a designer who does kind of very high color set piece, cool scenes, weird stuff, but a very high frequency. You need to work on the modules in a different way. We talked about it, but it's Bruce Cordell. I guess that's, like I'm just thinking about other authors we talk about. So
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Bruce Cordell to me is like, from the old. He's not the old TSR crowd, but he is like is legitimate. He's a legit designer from TSR, but that would be like maybe the top 3 of like the best guys they had, right?
Yeah.
But I yeah,
I'm just
I don't
giving
know.
some other
Go
things
ahead.
that you could be like, if you like this, then this. I think the real test is, I mean, obviously Nick's talked about having run stuff, you talked about running stuff, and that's good. It means they do get run. But like just having my final takeaway is like, I enjoyed reading it. I thought there's a lot of good stuff in it. But how far, and it does, I think it is by a guy who runs the game, who plays the game. And I think you can see that from all kinds of things, including some of the flaws. But I'm not sure how translatable or runnable it is. Just like, oh yeah, that's a cool module, I'll run that. Like, it's like you need a specialized group of gamers who just want to play weird stuff occasionally and do like 3 or 4 sessions of something weird and find out what happens. I think that's who you need for this module.
Yeah, or like, I mean, some of his shorter stuff, I would probably be brave enough to throw that in, but yeah, a lot of it is going to be too schizo for a normal game, for sure.
Yeah. Well, we should we should wrap up the stream. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Obviously, anyone tuning in after that, if you've read any UGG, if you've heard of this strange prophet from the wilderness, please tell us your thoughts in the comments. And if you know the particular cocktail of things he's interested in and uses to write, then you can also tell us in the comments. We'll have to. Well, next time I guess we'll be doing a discussion topic or something. Maybe we should talk about module design. Maybe we should tell everyone how to correctly design modules next time.
Yeah. All right. Sounds good. Let's go.
Yeah, we'll finally solve the question of writing modules. Yeah. Lynch, we acted as a dry tank, didn't we? He's no longer playing Factorio. By the way, he's just about immediately going to go back and play Factorio for 12 hours now. So
that's right.
Yeah. Straight off the whack and
appropriate.
Factorio.
Very good. Yeah.
Good night. I'll end the stream there.
All right. Have a great evening, everyone.